What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the 31 Days of Horror. I am your host, Mood616, and thank you once again for stopping in, guys. Yes, 31 Days of Horror, Volume 9, Day 16, coming at you live and direct. All right, guys. So for today, we're going to take it back to 1975 with a film that I never got to see for 1975. We did a top 10 in 1975 just a while back here, and it was a film that I wanted to check out, but I never got a chance to see it because unfortunately I couldn't find a copy with English subtitles, which sucked because I'd heard that this movie was really cool, and it was one I really wanted to check out. Now, about the time that we were recording the show, I think either Severin announced it just before the show, or maybe it was just after, but of course they ended up announcing it in All the Haunts BR's Volume 2 box set, and that is Nazareno Cruz and the Wolf from 1975. This is a Argentina film, folk horror film, of course. Yeah, so I was very, very excited when I found out that this movie was actually going to be in the box set, because I was like, shit, it's a little bit too late, but at least I'll get a chance to actually check it out. So pretty cool stuff. And actually, this movie, I read that it's actually like the second most popular film from Argentina, I think, of all time. It did like the best in their cinemas and stuff like that, which I thought was quite compelling, that it's like a folk horror genre film, and that it gravitated to the people of Argentina that much. I thought that was really compelling. So very cool stuff, and I can kind of see why. So basically, getting into the synopsis of Nazareno Cruz and the Wolf, this one follows, well, it gives you a little bit of context to the story. So basically, you have a father and his 6 sons. They're out doing some cattle herding. Unfortunately, a big storm hits, and they end up all dying. They all drown in this river. And so the mom is back home, and she's pregnant with their 7th son. Now, the thing is, with the folklore legend, is that if the 7th kid is born a boy, it's going to be a werewolf. And, you know, there's some exposition beginning of the film with this witch and stuff like that. And the witch is like telling the mom to like not have this baby, because if it's born a boy, it's going to be a werewolf. The mom is totally convinced that this is not going to be a werewolf. She doesn't believe in these folk horror, you know, these folk tales and stuff like that. So, of course, she goes ahead and has the baby. The grandmother insists that they name it Nazareno Cruz, so they name the baby Nazareno Cruz. And so she has the baby. And you know, everybody in the village and stuff like that is freaking out, like this boy's going to turn into a werewolf and stuff. But as the boy grows up into adulthood, it never turns into a werewolf. So everybody's kind of like relieved that maybe this curse isn't real and stuff like that, and this legend isn't real. And but during his journey into adulthood, you know, he becomes very well liked within the village and stuff like that. Like, he becomes very good at what he does, branding cattle, and just everyone really likes him. Like, everyone loves Nazareno. He's kind of like their god around there. Is like, you know, he was supposed to be something evil, but he actually turned out to be something really, really good. Now, the interesting turn of the film is, you know, he basically falls in love with this girl named Griselda. And that's when things take a turn for the worse. So he falls in love with this girl named Griselda. One day he comes in contact with the devil. And now the devil proposes to him. He's like, well, here's the deal I'm going to offer you. He's like, I will give you a lifetime worth of riches 77 times over. And all you got to do is just get rid of your love. And that being Griselda. And he's like, or else you are going to turn into a werewolf tomorrow on the full moon. And of course, Nazareno's like, absolutely not. He's like, I've made it this far in my life. I'm not going to turn into a werewolf. And yeah, so he completely kind of brushes off the devil and stuff like that. Full moon hits, he turns into a werewolf, and that's the synopsis of the film right there. It sounds like it's a lot of the story, but it actually is like the first like 20 minutes of the film. It basically kind of gives you a lot of information, like right in the beginning of the film and stuff like that. So my thoughts on Nazareno Cruz and the Wolf. Really awesome folklore tale. This is one of those stories where it's very kind of like, it feels very simple. The story feels very, very simple, but I've never seen a story have a catalyst that is love. Love is literally the reason why the curse exists. I thought that was really cool. Now, this one doesn't really play out. It might play out a little bit on how you expect it, but at the same time, it completely doesn't play out how you would expect it also. There's this whole thing with, like, of course, the love angle, and then there's this whole thing with God and the devil, and like how it resolves itself is really quite compelling. I thought the story was very, very unique. I've never heard of anything, like I said, a lot of folklore tales to do with werewolves and stuff like that, but never a catalyst that is love. Love is literally the reason why everything goes down. It's so wild. It's such a wild story, but it actually is kind of compelling, like the way it resolves itself and how they explain it away and stuff. It's actually really cool. As for the film, so when he turns into a werewolf, the effects aren't really the greatest on the werewolf. It is essentially a dog that they kind of shoot in the shadows, and they kind of make it all dark and stuff like that. But it's essentially just a dog that they shoot. It's nothing really that special. The carnage, like after he turns into a werewolf, he basically goes into the village and, attacks a bunch of like animals and kills dogs and stuff like that. There's no people attacks from what I remember, but yeah. So of course this happens, and the town folk is like, well, it's got to be him. He was supposed to turn into a werewolf, at some time. So they get the cavalry together, and now they're trying to hunt him. And of course, Nazareno doesn't want to drop his love for Griselda because he still doesn't really believe that this is actually true. But at the same time, he's like, well, I kind of did some bad shit. And so now he's being hunted, and he's like, he's got a hideout and stuff like that. And meanwhile, he's having these interactions with the devil and trying to figure out everything and stuff. But yeah, a lot of really, really good characters. So we have a witch character that gives a lot of exposition, backstory as to, how the curse works and how the folklore works and stuff like that. Pretty cool. But visually, this movie is fantastic. It's shot like in these locations in Argentina, and it's just like really like in these kind of like fields and these these hill areas, and it's just beautiful, beautifully shot. Looks really, really good. They did a fantastic version or deal with the transfer here and stuff like that. So but yeah, not really a lot of like effects and stuff like that. A lot of people would probably not even classify this to be a straight up horror film, but it is though. It definitely has those elements. I mean, it's got the werewolf angle, it's got the whole folklore, it's got the devil. It's got a lot of different elements and stuff like that, but very compelling story. And this one kind of blew my mind a little bit because I've never seen a story that had to deal with love as a catalyst for bad. This is like such a unique thing, but yeah, really, really good acting here. I gotta say, man, like the guy that plays Nazareno Cruz does a really fantastic job. I thought he was cast perfect. He has that really kind of boyish look to him that is very, very favorable for the viewer. You see him and you want to root for him, but he's like in this really bad situation. The guy that plays the devil in this film does a fantastic job. I think he's probably my favorite character in the film. The old lady that plays the witch, she's fantastic. Her laugh is just out of control, ridiculous. There's a lot of different kind of like cut and paste effects and stuff like that where she's turning into different animals because she's a witch. She can do whatever the hell she wants. There's some really weird dialogue in this film too. Like there's this one scene where she's like, yeah, and while you go and do this thing, I'm just going to turn into a donkey and eat some grass. And that's literally what happens. I'm like, was that supposed to be funny? Like there's moments in the film that are like that and shit. I'm like, that's crazy. So you get a lot of this type of stuff. And I mean, I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was a really fantastic thing. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It runs just under 90 minutes. Of course, it is a film from Argentina, so it is going to be subtitled. Keep that in mind if you're not into that thing. But it's very easy to follow, though. It's not like one of those really confusing folklore tales where it's like, holy shit. But I will say, once the third act hits and things kind of get exposed and I don't want to say really too much about how this one goes and where it goes and stuff like that. But there is one scene where he eventually kind of falls down this hole and ends up in what they would call hell. And, he's having this conversation with the devil. And that's where it gets really compelling as to what's really going on and stuff. And I was like, oh shit, that's very interesting and new to me. I'd never really heard anything like that, so I thought that was really compelling. But the depiction of hell itself I thought was really cool. I think it could have been, I mean, if this film was made today, it would be like so much more like hellish, like blood and gory and all that type of shit and stuff like that. And that's one thing this film really does not do. It does not focus on, like the exploitation of like the sex scenes, and it doesn't really exploit like the horror elements of it, but it's definitely there. So I mean, I don't know if that was just restraints having to do with Argentina, or if that's just what the filmmakers really wanted to do with their film and stuff like that. But I think it's a very elegant film. And yeah, it just kind of showcases in cinematography. Now, some of the sex scenes are very interestingly shot too, because there's a scene where Nazareno Cruz and Griselda are making out on this beach. And the way it's shot, it's almost shot like old 70s porn. Like the camera angles are right in on them. But I think what the filmmakers were going for is, they really kind of wanted to showcase that full-on compassion that even though like he is kind of a werewolf and, he's still in love, but he was actually making things worse and stuff like that. But some of those scenes were very interestingly shot. Not really my favorite, but overall, like the wide angle shots and, you know, the actual cinematography of the locations is fantastic. Really, really good stuff. So, but yeah, Nazareno Cruz and the Wolf. Very compelling folklore story. Definitely a unique tale. Definitely very, very unique. And I gotta say, man, I mean, I'm not usually into like these, you know, these kind of tragic love stories and stuff. And this is the second film that I've actually reviewed recently having to do with tragedy and love and, you know, toxicity in relationships and things like that. And even though Cannibal Mukbang, which I did a few days ago, and if you haven't checked out that review, check it out, because the movie's actually a lot better than the title would suggest. Yeah, this one is kind of the polar opposite, but they still deal with that main core idea of like tainted love, you know? So, very interesting stuff. I'm going to come in at an 8 out of 10 on this one from, fine folks over at Severin, man, for putting out these things. It's just absolutely incredible. It seems like every time we like discover some random films or whatever, like, oh, that movie doesn't have a release, fucking Severin puts them out. Like, it's just incredible. So if you haven't checked out these sets, man, Volume 1 is fantastic. I've seen pretty much every film in here. Working on set 2. I have seen some of the ones, but I haven't watched the transfers in here. But yeah, so if you're looking to find the film, it's on the All the Haunts Be Ours Volume 2 set. Nazareno Cruz and the Wolf from Argentina, 1975. Really, really good film, I have to say. So, anyways, guys, that's going to do it here for day 16. I'll be back tomorrow on day 17. And as per usual,